We're going to begin today discussing the equation written above. It says 34 take away 1/2 of some quantity is equal to x. This is what we call an algebraic equation because there is some unknown that goes through multiple or a series of operations and becomes a quantity. So every algebraic equation tells a story. This story is going to be the story of x. There's some quantity x that at first is being multiplied by 1/2. And then it's being negated. The negation is actually the opposite sign. And that is represented by a multiplication of -1. And then after that negation, we're going to be adding by 34 positives. And after all of that, it is equal to 58. We can read algebraic equations horizontally. It's depicted above. You can also take the same storyline and write it vertically. We start with some quantity x, we multiply it by 1/2, and then we negate it by multiplying by -1. 1 is the multiplicative identity, so it doesn't change the value, but the -1 changes the sign of the value. And then we add 34 positives, and it becomes equal to 58. So we can see that there's some transformation from an unknown value going through multiple operations, and it becomes 58. I know how it became 58, but I want to know what was x before it was 58. So going back through the story, we have to undo the operations that happened to find the original value. The last operation that happened in the story is actually the first operation that we do to undo. So the goal is to get to the additive identity, and the additive identity is 0. So if I have 34 positives and my job is to get to the identity, which is 0, I need to add 34 negatives. So going through the story to the next level, I see that the negation needs to be undone. 1 didn't change the value of the problem. The -1 just changed the sign. So if I start with a -1, changing the sign, I need to rechange the sign. Going from a negative to ending with a positive, I need to add another negative, another opposite sign. So I take my value from my previous step, 58, added to 34 negatives, and becomes 24 positives. Perfect. 24 positives times a -1, or positive 24 negated. And I'm going to move up to my next step. I see that it's multiplying by 1/2. Again, in order to undo the step, we need to find the identity. In order to get the identity, we use the inverse. So the inverse of multiplying by 1/2 is actually multiplying by 2/1. I take my previous answer, which is going to be -24, I multiply it by 2, and our ultimate answer, x, is equal to -48. So we worked our way through the story, and then we worked our way back up to undo the story, and we found out that x was -48 before it became 58. So let's check our work by replacing it back into our original equation. 34 take away 1/2 of x is equal to 58. We know what x is now, so let's replace it with substitution. 34 take away 1/2 of -48. We're going to focus on this because the order of operations tells us that multiplication happens before addition. So 1/2 of -48 is -24. I can split -48 into two equal groups of 24, negative 24. So 34 take away negative 24 is equal to 58. Now we know that subtraction really doesn't happen. Subtraction is really just addition of the opposite sign. 34 plus the inverse of negative 24 is positive 24 is equal to 58. When I take 34 and 24 and add them together, it is 58. 58 is equal to 58. So we maintained equality throughout the entire equation. We found out that our solution for x is equal to negative 48. Congratulations.